Okay, so this came out. Oh, boy. I can hear all the young media sycophant fanboys freaking out over this. Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, apparently wrote an article on Shedeur Sanders. Said a lot of good stuff, but there were multiple people who did not like Shedeur Sanders' attitude. Now, this is a story now because Shedeur Sanders, over the last week to 2 weeks, we've heard about him dropping in the draft. One of the quotes in the story was, "The worst formal interview I've ever seen in my life. Horrible body language, blames teammates. Biggest thing is he's just not that good," an assistant NFL coach told Pelissero. It didn't go great in our interview. He wants to dictate everything, what he's going to do, and it kind of makes you feel small. So, listen, interviews do matter a little bit for quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, I was told, was so good in his interviews. He had so much football knowledge. He had such great energy, great eye contact, sense of humor. People were blown away with Baker Mayfield in the interview. He was good on the whiteboard, funny, confident, without arrogant. So my takeaway on this is, yeah, this is part of being a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, by the way, read Ian O'Connor's book. Why did he drop in the draft? Aaron came across as too cocky. It matters. I can just already see the fence being built to protect Shedeur Sanders, who I like. But the scouts, they're not just making stuff up. Coaches don't make stuff up. Remember we were warned about Kyler Murray's attitude? Yeah, they were right. Cam Newton's ego, Johnny Manziel's focus, if Josh Rosen could stay healthy, Jay Cutler's arrogance. Yeah, they were right on all those. And now people say, what about C.J. Stroud? Oh, boy. People like C.J. Stroud. They said his comp was Jared Goff. Super accurate, doesn't get hurt, doesn't move a ton. That's not a bad comp. Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl. Okay, and the other thing was, there's a new test out. It's called an S2 evaluation. It's just more information. It doesn't mean it's foolproof. C.J. Stroud did not do well on it. Bryce Young had an amazing through-the-roof score. So obviously it doesn't just equal wins, but it's more information. It's a cognitive test, and people think it's better than Wonderlic. It's really good with quarterbacks. You still need a left tackle and a good coach and a good coordinator and a good owner and a good general manager, but it's just more information. So this article has a ton of nice things about Shedeur Sanders. It says a bunch of nice stuff. But there are a couple people that say it comes across as cocky. And I've said this, and I said this about Caleb Williams. Over the next 2 to 3 years, you got to be very careful, I believe, in judging a kid's confidence as an NFL scout, because they're all getting paid now. They're all millionaires coming into the game. And some of those kids have had money. Some of those kids have not had money. But last year's class, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and especially Caleb Williams, he was the first quarterback ever drafted that was richer than any of the scouts that interviewed him. I mean, he had a better net worth before he signed a contract with the Bears. And so the kids have money now. They're being empowered by NFL. There's going to be a little bit of confidence, and I think some of that confidence will come across as arrogance to NFL people, because these kids now, they don't come in wide-eyed. They're driving new cars. They may own a condo. Their family's more set. They're going to come in and not grovel to you, and I think a lot of NFL people are kind of used to quarterbacks coming in, yes, sir, no, sir. Hey, coaches, they got more money than you do. So I do think this is something over the next 3 or 4 years to watch it play out. When I hear worst interview ever, that seems a little dramatic to me. But I would say this to the media as well. Take a deep breath. This is just all information. Interviews matter. They were right on Johnny Manziel. I mean, Cam Newton's a great podcaster. Why? Because he's more personality. That's why in the NFL, he never had back-to-back winning seasons. But he was memorable. Like, that's what people said going into the Cam Newton draft. Like, he's a lot of personality, a little bit into Cam. Everybody freaked out. And that's actually why Cam's kind of a good podcaster. He's a performer. And that was what they said. The stuff is mostly right. Right? It was right on Johnny Manziel. And by the way, the people that love Baker Mayfield, not everybody, but the people that love them, they're like, he can read a defense. Teammates will love him. He's got a ton of confidence. They've been right on Baker Mayfield. And the critics of him, myself, were a little bit of ego, kind of immature, maybe not as good athletically as people think. And that was right, too. So don't overreact to this. I can see young people now coming into the sport with a little ego, a little confidence. They've been paid. They made money. It's not the end of the world. I think Shedeur's biggest issue is one that is well documented. Arm, mobility, size, his traits are, okay, that's the issue. The interview stuff, this feels a little hot for me, but I can see everybody freaking out. This is unfair. No, it's not. It's totally fair. This is the game. This is what happens when you're a quarterback. Andrew Luck came out, literally a perfect prospect, and people questioned his arm strength. It was like, you watched him. Do you ever think, Andrew Luck's a noodle arm. Other than that, he's fantastic. Like, everybody gets picked apart. Take a deep breath. All right, but it is interesting, J-Mac, that a week ago to 2 weeks ago, because these interviews were done a long time ago, now they're getting out because people are doing a lot of articles. And so, The Athletic's got 6 articles a day, and now stuff's coming out. I do think what is interesting, though, that even the people who like Shedeur Sanders, like there's the Giants, people in the building like him. The building's also split. See, what you're getting with Shedeur Sanders is, because let's take Cam Ward out, he's going to the Titans. Right. Every quarterback after that, Jackson Dart, people are very mixed. Shedeur, mixed. Jalen Milroe, mixed. What we have outside of Cam Ward is B to B minus quarterback prospects, and when you have that, you get divided opinions.
Yeah. Your Shedeur point is great. I think it's worth a larger discussion. So, Colin, you and I have run businesses. Okay? Yeah. You've interviewed a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some kid comes in thinking he's a hot shot. Hey, how are you? What's up, man? Acting all cool and too cool for school. I've made my money. I've got my social media following. If he acts like that, are you more likely to hire him or be like, oh, if this is what he's like in the interview, what's this guy going to be like to deal with? Because I know you want to give pause that some of these coaches are older and they what? Yes, sir. No, sir. If Shedeur's walking in there like his stuff don't stink, I don't know that I want that in my building as a young leader of a football team. I just don't.
I remember when my daughter was interviewing for jobs, and I talked to her about this. I said, I'm just going to tell you what Dad thinks. You can take this information for whatever you want, but I own a business, and I have a staff. I have a radio TV staff. I've got a volume staff. I said, don't ask about vacation.
Right.
Don't ask. When I hear that, I'm like, oh. Mm-hmm. I said, I don't care if you think that's what all the young hipsters ask about is work-life balance. Nobody wants to hear about work-life balance. That's the only advice I'm going to give you. You're going to work and work hard. When do I start? I said, I'm just telling you, for Dad in my generation, and my generation owns a lot of those businesses, we're turned off by that. Like, because we worked our butt off. We're not going to work you to the bone. We're not asking for 70 hours a week. But if you ask about vacation, and that's a real priority, you know what? Go be an influencer on IG.
By the way, Patrick Mahomes' dad was a professional baseball player. You think he walked into interviews with NFL teams acting like he was the man? I'm not bashing Shedeur here. I personally would take him at 2 or 3.
Yeah, so
but
it
almost feels like there's an old coach somewhere around the league who sat in on an interview and heard and saw this and was like, yeah, I want this guy. I'm like, if he's acting like this in an interview, what's he going to be like in the locker room?
Well, and again, I think I think both are true. I think young quarterbacks now and young college football players come in with money, so they're not groveling. I think that's true. That's not a bad thing, but it's true. I also think it depends on the coach. I think a Sean McVay would handle it better, but there are a lot of coaches in this sport, old defensive coaches. They want a kind of kneel to
not quite kiss the ring, right? But show some respect. I mean, now Brian Daboll, he can't roll into the meeting and be like, here's all my Super Bowl rings. He can't do that, whereas a Belichick could back in the day. Mike Tomlin could do that. Yeah. Here's my Super Bowl ring, son. How are you? I'm very curious about this.
By the way, you and I have both interviewed for jobs. I have had good interviews. I think I interview pretty well. But I've had interviews before where I walk out and I'm like, that was weird. Yeah. He was like, the interviewer's aggressive, or they're not really looking for what I provide. So, listen, these interviews are not 4 hours long. Right. Sometimes they're 10 minutes. Not all interviews go well. I mean, I've done a million podcasts with people. Sometimes the podcast is over and I'm like, that wasn't a very good podcast. It just never got going.
Some of the advice you would give your kid, hey, play it safe, don't say anything risky and feel out the interview the way Mike Tyson would feel out a fight or LeBron feels out a series. Ease in, don't come in all cocky. And I just wonder if Shedeur has turned off enough that he plummets here. I don't know.
I still contend. Cam Newton turned some people off. But Cam was so damn talented, who cared?
Yeah, but Shedeur's not in his class.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Caleb Williams turned some people off. Caleb's too talented. The biggest issue with Shedeur is arm, okay. Mobility, average. Size, That's the issue. Is that if people, like I keep hearing about, this kid that transferred to UCLA, Nico Iamaleava. Everybody's like, oh, bad kid. If he lights it up at UCLA, or had he lit it up at Tennessee, he's going in the first round.
He got them to the playoff.
Yes.
Yeah, come on.
In the end, the greater the talent.
Just to be clear, I would take Shedeur at 3 if I were the Giants.
You and I are both.
I know people don't love him. I haven't interviewed him or anything, but I would look hard at, like, if you don't get a quarterback and you're the Giants, hello, 5-12. Like, that's where you're headed.
Yeah, no, you and I are both on, we like him more than the world does.
Yeah.
So, and these stories, it's just part of the game.